Before we start, we need to tell you up front we are not a licensed financial planning, accounting or law firm. This is simply an education program which will give you factual information. We do not give any general or specific advice around finance, business, investing, options trading or anything else. That is not what this presentation does. Please see a licensed financial planner when it comes to any investment advice you need.
It is Edge Radio Australia. We're doing the Greater Wealth thing. I've got Derek Whittaker.
Oh dear.
Oh, look, it has been a holiday period.
We started 2023 just like that.
Just like that, mate.
And it wasn't even me.
Normally it's Travis who makes the big screw up, we'll call it. But no, there we go. Lovely. Look, did you enjoy your operation?
And the Gong Award goes to
Derek Whittaker. Okay. On my left, mate. Great to see you. Great. I hope you had a wonderful New Year's. We've done a quick little catch up, but it's just great to see you. And obviously, I hope you had a great Christmas.
I've had a wonderful, relaxing time, not going anywhere, doing much at all, staying at home, enjoying the kids and my wife, and just having Christmas. It was great.
That's the perfect way to do it, right? Let's face it. Now, every show starts badly around here, but it goes downhill even quicker. That's when I introduced that fella over there. What should I call you today, Mr. Carter?
That's a travesty that you did that.
Oh,
because normally it's me that does the atrocious intros or the highly inappropriate comments and stuff like that. But I feel privileged and honoured that you stuffed up so bad.
Welcome to 2023.
You thought 2022 was bad? This show's already going downhill.
Only way is up.
You didn't take any jibby jabs over there.
No, jibby jabs. No. Still running clear. Trust me, it's all good. Oh, dear.
Hopefully no disco biscuits either.
No.
Am I showing my age yet?
Just a little bit green Mitsubishi. Look, I think
fish.
Okay, we will move on from that. So, mate, I will ask you very briefly. We've got the kids in the background here as well, which is great. You know, we're a
disco biscuits.
Exactly. We're a family show. Great to have the family in. Good.
It was good just to have a break to get away from you. Like I could hear, like with your shirts being so loud, like I could actually hear other people.
I'm so hurt by that. I don't really care.
Did you get that for Christmas?
No.
He's had that one for ages.
Yeah, a couple of years.
The amount of like the events in the city and all that sort of stuff where I've seen that shirt come out. No. Yes, there was one where you wore it because you were first launching Edge. You wore it at one of the events in the city.
Because the colour.
Yes,
the
I
Edge colour.
That's why you wore it.
Part of it. Okay. Yeah. Orange t-shirt underneath. Away you go.
So we've got Australia Day coming up soon. So you go bust out all the Australia Day flag ones.
I've got those ready to go, mate. Ready to go. I'm going to be called all sorts of names for that.
No, of course. Why not?
Why not? Now, this is a show about greater wealth, right? Okay, So we talk about all sorts of things. We talk about finance. We talk about politics. We talk about how the two mesh. And I don't know, basically where we're going to go on this as far as the details, but I do know that just before we went to air, you were saying things are going to change financially because of Pelosi's position and what was going on there.
Well, it's going to be interesting, the ripple effect of that. We saw Nancy Pelosi in the United States resign over the Christmas break.
Yep.
And there, of course, they have to get a new Speaker of the House. Coming out of the midterm elections in the United States, everybody was thinking it was going to be a big landslide to the red, and that didn't happen. But they did gain control.
They did.
Of the House, and they have been fighting for a new speaker. And what's been really amusing is that finally he's had to work for it, and it's a really healthy sign. That Republican Kevin McCarthy got it, but it took 15 rounds of voting to actually get him over the line.
Hang on, is that democracy? What's going on there?
Exactly.
You know what's really funny? Like, there's 15 rounds of voting. They're like, oh my God, that's so much. But if you have a look at the actual count in Australia to actually nominate a single MP or whatever,
sure.
Like especially when you start getting to the Senate counts, you're up to like 200-300 rounds of voting.
Crazy. Very different
because
system.
You got to remember, every time they do a round, they kick someone out, and then they go to the next one, and then they kick someone else out, and they do it like one person at a time. It's like, okay, so they don't do it like batch. All of you guys had less than 1%, so you can all nick off, and we'll go to the next week. Sure. No, they just do it one person at a time. So it's just amazing how, even though we're both on the Westminster system, how different it's mutated over time.
Yeah,
So
okay.
I find that fascinating.
I have
So
to
this is
agree.
me political geeking out.
You
here.
never. Come on. Really? It's just not his thing at all. So, okay, how will this affect things financially?
Well, it's going to be interesting because what happened was why it took 15 times was it was dissension, as they call it. I hate labels on people, but there was some the media have called them far right dissenters, the mainstream media.
So far right, so he believes in family and God. Is that what it is? Right. One of those wild ones.
And one of them was from Florida, Republican Matt Gaetz. And of course, we know what Florida has been doing in the United States, pushing back on a lot of the protection of the family issues. And he was nominating Donald Trump, of all people, to be the Speaker of the House.
You know how funny that would be?
Well, it would have been very strategic if he actually got that position, because what could he do? He can impeach Biden and go for the Democrats that way. It would have been a very strategic move if that had occurred. He was the only one out there, I think, that was putting his name forward. But he kept doing that. So what they had to do was go into negotiations, and it also almost got to 50 cuffs at one point when I don't know if you saw the video footage, but it was really interesting when one of the Republicans had to pull back one of the other Republicans back because these guys were just holding their line.
I didn't see this.
Go watch Japanese politics. They literally do come to fisticuffs. Like they're piling over tables, laying everyone out. But one thing, just going back to the guy that nominated Trump, is Australian guy, good friend of ours. The reason we have this station on another station, Joel Jamal.
Yeah.
When the Trump first started talking about going back, he actually predicted that if Trump does, and he mapped it out mathematically how it would happen to get Donald Trump a third term in politics as the president.
Third, which is supposed to be against the Constitution, right?
Yeah, it's supposed to be impossible. But if you, the 25th Amendment, I think it is, when the president is not fit for duty, they pull him out, goes to the deputy. Sorry, was it the vice president? So Kamala Harris, she's a robot or whatever. You know, that's a joke. Please don't hate me. So then you remove her for not being fit for duty, and then it'd go to the Speaker of the House, and that's the path he would have to take to get in. And it was actually, I hate to say it, the way he worded it and like put it all out, it is actually genuinely a possibility that Trump could have actually served a third term.
Joel Jamal said this.
Joel
knows his stuff. Let's face it, he studies things.
You know what's really funny? Like before he got into politics, he was a bricklayer.
Of course he was. Yeah, with the best eyebrows in town. Yeah,
one eyebrow, not eyebrows.
So how does this relate to money?
Yes.
Well, one of these Republicans said, "Look, we want to curb spending." By $75 billion, which is
good. No. The amount of debt they have, they really need to start curbing the spending.
Because the big thing about the United States is they cannot fund retirement. The Social Security checks for their population. They have got a huge liability there. And basically, that's what he's been coming in. There were a number of issues that they had to negotiate on to finally agree, okay, we'll vote for you.
Okay.
I love it. Why? Because it's democracy.
Yeah.
And I think, a lot of the mainstream media was criticizing of that, but that's the messy sloppiness of democracy. This means that there are voices that are in the minority that can actually get a voice, and it's just not party pushing policy. We've got more
They've
people.
They've finally been heard.
Yeah.
And that just hasn't existed in American politics since 2020.
So it's healthy.
It's very healthy indeed. Look, people need to be heard. This is the thing. It's the whole point of all these politicians, they're supposed to represent the people. And how often do we see that happening? Very rarely. You're looking at me very strangely, but it drives me nuts. It drives me nuts. They're there to represent the people.
I'm about to drop a fox in a hen house here.
Go.
We here at Edge have actually experienced this personally, where we've had a lot of backlash over some of our presenters, but you're exactly right on that. You got to hear both sides of the story to be able to understand what's going on.
Yep.
And I'm actually really proud for Aaron for not backing off on this one. So
no, free speech is free speech. Full stop. We've had a present. Just little quick segue, very quick.
Listen to a show; it's great.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a show that Gwenda does, which is called Soul Therapy. It's on every Thursday from 10 p.m. Try 10 a.m. in the morning. Fantastic show, all about holistic lifestyle and basically improving your life. Really, really good. Now, Gwenda had some personal ideas that she put on her personal Facebook page. We got absolutely attacked for by one particular individual and his little friends.
I have to say, my opinions are totally different to hers.
Well,
but
exactly.
You know what? It works.
And you know what?
Cares?
But that's exactly right. So we we're absolutists when it comes to free speech. And the beauty of this is, of course, why would I tell somebody who works here to think differently? God, no. She has every right to say what she wants, and we'll never back away from it. Never back away from it.
Yeah.
So sorry, mate.
I love hearing what's going on in America, because it shows that the genuine free speech is actually coming back. And you have a look at Elon Musk taking over Twitter, so free speech is coming back there as well.
Well, you'll like another thing that they had to agree to, and it was that basically he had to promise that House members would get 72 hours to review bills before they came to the floor.
We need that in Australia.
And that's to require a vote to raise debt limits for the federal budget, or to hold votes on congressional term limits and a border security plan. And that's powerful.
That is very powerful.
That's actually giving people, to try to push things through without reasonable debate that's going to have catastrophic effects on people's lives and the citizens of their nation without proper review and discussion.
So I want to get political on this one.
Debate is so important.
No. The big thing here is, so you got to remember, in Australia, so we've got Albanese, who's the president of Australia, Prime Minister of Australia, and then we've also got Mark McGowan, who's the Premier of WA. So first of all, Albanese. So a lot of the crossbench and non-Liberals and Labors, so I'm also talking the Teal Independents, I'm pretty sure the Nationals got caught up in this as well.
Okay.
So normally each member of the senators have 4 staff members who are like research officers. So every time a bill gets tabled, they've got 4 people who can go over the bill and say, yes, no, this is good, this is bad, whatever. He reduced that from 4 to 1. All right. And there's still, and to put that into perspective, there's about 30,000 pages a year that they have to read. So instead of having 4 people that can go over that, they've now got 1. So then you take that even a step further in WA. So the amendment to the Mineralogy Act 2020. So that bill was probably one of the most disgusting and biggest violations on human rights that I've ever seen pass Parliament. And the worst bit is, because it was pushed through so hard and so fast by Mark McGowan, no one actually had a chance to go over the bill in its entirety. So there's a really interesting bit in there. So it's about Clive Palmer actually sued the WA government. So it's to remove Clive Palmer's rights. Now there's a line in it saying that the West Australian government will have no legal or criminal personal or criminal liability to Clive Palmer or any of the executives from Mineralogy. So even if Mark McGowan shoots Clive Palmer, he can't take any criminal actions against the WA government. And yet that got passed one day. From
that's because we have a one-party state here in Western Australia.
No, this is before then.
Are you serious?
Deadly serious. This is before Mark McGowan took over. So Liberals, Labors, unfortunately, One Nation, all the minor parties, all the oppositions, we did not have time to read the bill before they had to vote on it. So it got passed unanimously. No one opposed it.
My word.
Okay. So this is why that 72-hour chance to go over every single bill is so crucial, because it gives people time to read this, understand it, and actually make a proper decision on what's going on. We do not have that in Australia.
And it will save money, because otherwise it ends up in the courts.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
Well, but the courts is basically the basis of how America works anyway. Let's face it. Everybody sues everyone for everyone.
Well, you'd be surprised, because Australia is one of the highest litigious nations.
I heard that recently. The
Queen, Sydney, New South Wales, I should say, is the second highest state of litigation in the world.
That's insane.
It's just crazy.
And that's the reason why I'm not in Sydney. Can you imagine how much trouble I would get to in Sydney?
Oh dear, no one wants that. Trust me.
So yeah,
good stuff. All right. So look, end of the day, how is this going to affect financially the US and then the flow on to us?
Give me a practical example. When there are big financial decisions to be made, I don't like rushing into my personal finances. No. Why should you do it on a nation scale? That's going to affect generations to come. We're going to pass how many billions of dollars to do this, this, and this. Are we? And we know we always are criticizing government for being so wasteful in terms of the resources of public funds. I think it's a good thing. There's 72 hours to review it. It's necessary. I love the fact that we're getting into more debate about things because really what we're talking about is not so much the money, it's what the money can do.
Spot on.
Very that is related to freedom, and the financial decisions that you make, a nation makes, are just critical. They need to be talked through. They need to be considered properly.
You know what? I can see, just going on the politics side of things, I can see the mainstream media and the Democrats going, the Republicans are so slow to pass bills. Now,
of course, there's always a
bitch and moan about
always
it, for sure. So, but it's a good slowness.
Well, a lot of them are saying this has been an embarrassment to democracy and all this sort of stuff. No, it's not. This is what democracy is. It's sloppy. Welcome to it.
Yeah. Otherwise, dictatorship's very clean. They make a decision, gets done, and always the loser out of that is the everyday person.
Yep.
Very true.
Good.
All right, time for a break, boys. Going to be back very shortly. It's Edge Radio Australia, a greater wealth. We've got another subject, mate, for this this segment here. What are we going to hit?
So over the Christmas break on the stock market, the big hedge fund guys go on Christmas break, as you would expect.
Yep.
And generally that creates what we call a liquidity issue in the market, where not as many trades are going through the market.
Sure.
So if you got big trades on, it can be difficult to get out of them.
Okay.
Because it's not normal trading hours
Sure.
and time and volume. Stock market has kicked off with a bit of a rally. We saw the Dow Jones, which is an indice in the United States, go up to 750 points at the close at the end of last week.
Okay.
So it's kind of like, okay, happy times, right? Coming off New Year and all that optimism out of Christmas, that sort of thing. It's going to be put to the test this week because what's happening is inflation data is coming out and December's consumer price index. So you've got to understand that the United States financial year is in 1st of January to the 31st of December.
Yeah.
It's a calendar year, not
Absolutely.
like how we do it here in Australia, which puts extra pressure on if you're in that game, because not only have you to be organised for Christmas, you also have to have your books in order.
It is full on, isn't it?
So I have to ask you, because I watch the markets a lot, and just before the GFC, there was like a bit of a rally, and then it went, before COVID, there's a bit of a rally, and then it crashed, and like all those really big events, there's always a bit of a rally, and then that's something I've noticed. Now, obviously, there's other times where it goes up, and then it just keeps going. So please do not take this as financial advice. What's the chances? Because if they've lied about inflation rates and it's much higher than it is, the December consumer index is a lot lower than what they were anticipating. So that's how much the everyday consumer spends. How severe of a crash could it be?
Well, I think it's going to be significant because we're thinking of Christmas here and
end of financial
Thanksgiving Day.
Oh, okay.
Because you've got the big in America, the Thanksgiving sales. On Friday, I call it Black Friday. Australia, of course, has adopted this as for market purposes. These are big deals of what happens in November, December.
Okay.
Right. So it really is. If these numbers are down, you're going, well, people will normally sacrifice to buy their kids Christmas presents.
Of course,
right?
Yep.
They'll go the extra mile. They'll go into debt for it. Okay. If those numbers aren't reflective there, then you're really going to be going, uh-oh, what's going on?
Okay.
Yeah. So will there be a crash? There could be. I don't know. There may not be. You know, and it's funny, timing. This is the hardest thing about investing is timing.
Oh, of course.
We're knowing when an investment's going to come off, when a trade's going to come off, when a crash is going to occur. That's the trickiest part of the game.
I have to say, like I see the US stock market at the moment like a train crash.
Yes.
Like, you know it's going to be savage. You know it's going to be brutal. You know people are going to get hurt, but you just can't help it. You have to watch. It's like, oh, yes. It's sort of like WWF. You know it's all fake. You know it's not real, but you know it's going to crash hard. And when it does, it's going to be over the top and everyone's like, oh.
So basically what you're saying, the US economy is married at first sight.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, or Jersey Shores.
Any of those,
it's just I'm just so excited because so many people have been anticipating that there's going to be a massive crash because, you know, with China falling over and everything else that's going on, the potential war in Taiwan, the Ukraine war and all this sort of stuff. So there has been crashes, but like nothing GWC, global financial crisis status.
Sure.
So I think a lot of people are just waiting for it to either explode in a good way or just totally implode and the whole entire market crashes in on itself. So I'm eagerly waiting to see which way it goes.
And some are going as far as saying a collapse.
Yeah,
Who
was the guy that shorted the GFC and they did the movie about him? He made like $100 million by shorting Drury or Derry or
don't know.
Anyway, so he put a tweet out a couple of months ago saying, what was it? You don't know how short I am. So not talking about how short he is in height, but how short he's shorting the market. Okay. And anything that's tech-based, he's totally gone out of all that. And they actually released his investments. In America, you've actually got to list what shares you're buying.
Sure.
And all of his shares that he's buying now are all asset-backed shares.
Okay. Now, for those who are not au fait with this, setup, explain that in more everyday layman terms, right? Now, when you say shorting the market, what do you mean by that?
He's anticipating that the market's on a nosedive like a 747 with no wings.
So what he's doing is he's moving his purchases, his shares out of tech and moving into.
You can make money with the market crashing.
Yeah. Okay,
that's what it means. So what they're doing is this is going to sound a little complex, but it's selling before buying.
Yeah. Of course.
That's what shorting means. So it's almost like an entrepreneur who goes, I don't have enough capital to buy all these fancy plasma televisions. I actually know this is a case study I actually witnessed. So that's why I use that reference. This guy saw he could make them in China really, really cheap. So instead of raising $250,000 trying to buy all these TVs and hoping to sell them, he started selling them first.
Okay.
Right?
Oh, sounds
for
like
a higher price, and then getting it manufactured at a lower price.
Sure.
That's kind of the same concept. What happens when shorting the market? You're selling the stock or selling an indice at a high price, and you profit from it potentially by buying it back at a lower price to fulfill those requirements of the contract. So that's what's going on. The reason why the CPI is really, really important here, though, is because remember last year the Federal Reserve just went interest rates, raising, and we felt that in Australia. I think a lot of households could felt that at Christmas time too. They're paying more for their mortgage now, etc. And so this is why this comes into play. Looking at CPI, if it's not healthy, if it's not looking good, the annual inflation rate dropped to 7.1%.
Apparently.
Allegedly. That's what they're looking at and going, okay, will the Federal Reserve raise interest rates again at the start of the year? That's why they're looking at this data and going, what's going to happen? So because if inflation still increases, of course, remember what the Federal Reserve was trying to do was curb that by raising interest rates. Will it be a flow-on effect to the economies? Because these things always take time to wash through. That's what they're going to be looking at in terms of those figures coming out from them and the banks as well.
So, okay, again, if the US is going to sneeze here, is Australia going to get the cold?
It's always a hard one to know how Australia has weathered the storm really well over the years in terms of the COVID crash, the GFC crash. We're a very different economy to the United States.
Sure.
We're not so tech heavy in our industries. Our big things are always agriculture, mining particularly, and exports. And internally in a national level, housing. Those are the levers we pull.
Sure.
I don't know how long we can keep pulling the housing lever. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see.
You brought up a very good one here, housing. With housing, with the interest rate, because they don't report it immediately. So they don't just increase the interest rates and, immediately the house prices come down and all that sort of stuff. So it takes a long time for the figures to flow through. Because obviously just settlement alone in Australia is a 4-week settlement to clear a house. That's not including getting your finance and picking a house and all that. So generally it's about 3 to 6 months process. The question I have now, has any housing figures been released in America yet? Because if they keep jacking up the interest rates, and the housing market's taking a nosedive, like the general value of houses. Because at the moment, everything I've been able to find on housing side of things has all been speculation. Because as far as I knew, pre-Christmas, none of the housing figures had been released. So I'd be really interested to find out the CPI figures, the interest rates figures, the inflation figures. What does that look like? And then seeing how the housing market has impacted, because I know housing in America is actually a really, really large part of their GDP as well. Not as much as in China, but it's still, houses are expensive. And during the one of the things that caused the GFC was actually the housing market taking a massive smash, which then rolled into the banking sector. So if the housing market falls, people aren't spending money. How's the banking sector and the insurance sector going to react to that? And is this going to be the trigger point for another GFC?
Well, here's my concern on that. Okay, exactly what you're saying. I mean, I'm certainly no expert, but I anticipate that the value of houses in the US is going to drop by a decent chunk, right? Because of all these interest rates.
Well, they had that spike coming out of COVID.
Spot on. So, the natural progression of things, it looks like there's going to be a decent drop. And if that's the case,
interest rates going up, inflation going up.
People can't afford houses.
Wages are not going up.
No.
So to take this a step further, so obviously with COVID, a lot of people were moving out of the major cities and into more regional areas. So there would have been a spike in the value because supply and demand in the regional areas. If the housing market does come down, is this because it's a crash or is this a stabilization? Like, is it coming back to norm?
Correction.
Thank you for correcting my terms there. Remember, Derek's the finance guy. I'm not. I just watch YouTube videos. So, is this a correction to the market prices to where it should be, or is this going to go even further and actually become a full-blown crash?
Well, I would suggest that the more rural areas, of the US tended to be undervalued in my eyes. What I saw, certainly, from afar, in the past, I'm talking, the last 10, 15 years, to me, I looked at the houses you could get, I was like, my word, like this, they're just a bargain. And then you look at the prices in places like, New York State or whatever, it's just insane. Okay, there's just that massive difference, and perhaps that could be a case of, it may be a correction. Who knows?
Well, property investing in the United States is quite different from Australia.
Sure.
And I've done it. What you've got to look at is, where are the jobs?
Okay.
Because in rural areas, you're getting land so cheap,
Sure.
because it's priced according to acreage and how much that land can actually produce, as opposed to what the house is worth.
Yes.
And are the jobs available in those small towns, because most people are employees. So that's a big factor in terms of, do people want to live there, and can they live there?
Yeah.
With lockdowns, working from home, that's changed things. However, what we're seeing is mass cuts in terms of big tech cutting jobs, just absolutely cutting their overheads big time. We haven't seen the end of that. Twitter is just warming things up. I think we're going to now start, the investigations are going to go into Facebook or Meta, Google as well. I'm anticipating a lot coming out of Google and what's been happening, because it's all related to that 2020 election.
Yes.
And the investigations there. How were, when it's being published, how were governments censoring its citizens that it disagreed with their narrative? I mean, this is going to be huge. This has lawsuit potential. It's going to be,
I think it'll be wrapped up in the courts for years. You're absolutely right. I think for the next few years, it's going to be so much. The reality is, we can all talk about the elephant in the room. The reality is that the election was, people want to use the word rigged, this, whatever. The fact of the matter is, big tech went out of their way to influence the election. It's as simple as that. And you saw who purchased time. You saw those people on the conservative side of politics who were being, censored and disappearing and whatever. All that kind
President
of
Trump was censored.
Exactly right.
So
I
I can actually see this ending in criminal charges.
No,
this is how far I can see this going.
Yeah, I'm sure of it.
Because especially if the Republicans can get up, they've now got the Speaker of the House. They've now got the ability to get this information out there and actually put it in front of a judge. And my understanding, in the Supreme Court in America, there's actually more Republican judges than Democrat judges at the moment, by one. So there's still a bit of hope in America on that regard. So I genuinely believe that I think this may end up, and this is total speculation, there's no financial advice in here, just for the people that are watching, I have a feeling this is going to end up in the courts, and not just like litigation courts. I think this will be criminal courts.
In my eyes, the best thing that can happen to America in the next election is DeSantis to get up. Personally, that's what I think. But
I want Trump.
Oh, look, you do for the drama. I get it.
I just want it for the drama. So I want Trump to get the next 4 years. After that, I want him to step down, then Ivanka or Trump Jr. or another Trump to do it, and then another Trump and another Trump and another Trump, and go 25 years down the line.
3 years is a long time in politics.
Very
I
true.
think it'll be interesting. I think DeSantis' time, if he plays it smart and keeps going along, he'll have his time. Whether I don't think it's his time yet. And
No,
I think,
but I'm working on that principle of 3 years is a long time in politics. And I watched him building his brand just yesterday. Speeches again.
12 months ago, no one knew who he was.
Exactly.
So,
Brilliant stuff.
And the thing is, like, he's shaping himself like as a Trump light.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
he's not as in your face. He's not as aggressive. So he's sort of like, Trump can do that and build the brand for the Republicans.
Sure.
And I'll just go, I'm clean cut. I'm good. I'm done fight for your rights. So I'm a good, stable choice.
Well, I'm not American, but tell you right now, the ticket I'd be voting for would be DeSantis with Tulsi Gabbard. That's who I'd be going for. I think that I can't see it happening. Don't get me wrong. That's my dream ticket. But I love the drama of Trump. I think it would be a lot of fun, and we'd have 3 more years.
Candace Owen, VP.
Oh, hang on, now we're talking.
Now,
hang on.
How could they attack her?
Okay. Well, look, I think we've all just thrown out. We're playing our fantasy baseball game here with our candidates. And I won't ask yours. Obviously, something's happened on the screen that Travis is laughing.
Oh, no. We've just got a bot, advertising bot come up.
Oh,
so,
okay.
It's all good.
All good.
I'm just laughing. Like, couldn't you imagine like Donald Trump and Candace Owens like just going to absolute town on the Democrats?
I just love it.
Could you imagine like the Senate hearings and all that sort of stuff if she was the VP and she's just like laying into people? Like, it would be savage.
what was the name of the person who is a speaker, the press secretary for Trump? McKinney?
Is that the blonde one or the red-headed one?
The blonde one.
McKinney. Yeah.
McKinney?
Oh no, McEnany. McCarthy.
I mean, she could possibly go into politics if she wanted to.
She's brilliant. My
in
word.
terms of how well versed and well researched she goes into her press conferences.
Wow.
The other one I think would be hilarious. She would never happen because she can't. There's a newspaper over in America called the Epoch Times.
Yes, I know. That.
And she's got Gina Shakespeare. She's one of the anchors on it. Like the amount of research, the intelligence on the woman is phenomenal. The reason she'll never be able to get into American politics is because she's actually a Kiwi.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's why she's got a funny accent, because it's half American, half Kiwi accent, and like absolutely great. So I'd highly recommend the Epoch Times. Yes, I am a subscriber to the channels and all that sort of stuff. But she would be another phenomenal one. I think she would really mess up the US political system.
Well, doesn't that sound like a lot of fun? I'm going to throw to a song in just a tick, but I'm going to give you, the outro, mate. Pretty much your closing thoughts on this subject.
On this one, or are we going to another one?
No, we're going to go to another one.
Okay. Me.
Yep. But on this one, and then maybe a little tease of what's coming up after the break.
I think it's a case of, look, we've got to look at things differently. Well, first of all, if the government is spying on what you're putting on in terms of social media, think twice about what you're broadcasting and publishing. Yeah, right. I think people just hide behind their profiles and just spit out the biggest filth sometimes.
It's disgusting.
And would you say that on radio? Would you say that on television? Would you say that?
Yes.
I'm not necessarily referring to you, Travis, but I think that's one thing that you've got to think of. The second thing is, all right, if interest rates continue to go up this year, where do you sit long term? What are you going to do? How are you going to navigate through this game in terms of, is the house really serving you or not? Sometimes you have to come to that question.
Yeah.
You're sitting on a big mortgage.
Yep.
You're confined to that square meterage of where you're living. Yes, you've got to live somewhere and have a roof over your head. That's an interesting question. And I always come back to you're going to smile here, and I've got to start the year this way. What's your life purpose?
Spot on.
Is the mortgage stopping you from living what you really should be doing?
Yep. Oh, sorry. I want to have a crack at millennials now.
Oh,
you cannot go straight out of high school and buy a $1.5 million house. You got to start with a shit box apartment, 1 bedroom, half a toilet. It's sort of like most of the time you go to actually pee out the window because the plumbing doesn't work.
Well, if mummy and daddy have helped you buy it, then that's a different issue.
But aren't you entitled to it?
Everyone's situation is different.
Like my first investment property. So, well, I shouldn't say mine. The wife's first investment property. We purchased 2 duplexes, 2 buildings. This is nearly 6 years ago now.
Yep.
$70,000 for both. They were the 2 most disgusting properties we could possibly buy.
Fitting for you.
Yeah, it was perfect. But people have got to understand, and like just going back to the mortgages, do not, if the bank says you can borrow $500,000, do not borrow $500,000. Go, right, I'll borrow $200.
Yep.
Because
it's like a good old-fashioned credit card, okay?
Get one.
No. The banks go, if you go in there and they see your earnings, whatever, they go, we're going to throw money at you. You can borrow this much. You can have this big card. I remember years ago when I was doing rather well and I was offered a very, very substantial and very sexy-looking card. And I said, I'm all right, thanks. I'll just take what I need, right? Because, just enough for my purchases and life, you know what I mean? Not the big status symbol card. Because quite frankly, how easy is it to spend that status symbol and then get yourself into trouble?
Dude, that's why I don't like carrying cash with me, because if I've got the money, I will spend it. So that's why my bank account has $0 in it, because I put everything away where I can't touch it.
Perfect. And with that, we're going to a break. It is Edge Radio Australia. Great. Well, love this show every week. We talk about really interesting things, and what I like is the fact that it's tangible, right? Like, it's not just pie in the sky, like I used to watch old God Lipson and all that, and he'd be talking about the Dow Jones and this and that and all. I was like, when are you going to talk about the widgets, right? Like, I just don't, it means nothing to me. So it's very cool to have you in every week, and we talk about these things and how they relate to us. So,
thank you. It's always great to be here. It's going to be a big year. Fasten your seatbelt, all right? If you thought 2022 was big, wait till you see 2023, all right? It's going to get, I keep saying it, and I'm going to say it again, it's like a renovation. It looks worse before it looks better, okay? It's going to get better, but it's going to look worse to the outside to many people before it gets better, okay? We're just warming up what we saw in 2022. And we are in the age of truth. All the truth is starting to come out of all the web of lies of what's been going on for decades, really. and the great revelations of what has been going on behind closed doors and conference doors and boardrooms and that. And so get used to hearing more and more of that. Some of the stuff that I think is going to come out is there's going to be big exposures and more truth to come out on social media platforms. This is going to have effect on the whole tech sector in terms of finance, where the jobs are. I wouldn't be surprised if you see big migrations we already have to other social media platforms.
Yeah.
Okay, then that's where the advertising will go as far as business is concerned. They'll go where the people gather. So there's going to be lots of shifts to that. I think a lot of the big tech companies are going to come under huge scrutiny. And with that, I think you're going to see massive resignations as well. We're going to continue to see that across the board, not only in the corporate sector, but also in government, when we see that government involvement and government agencies have been involved with social media and all that sort of stuff. The crypto space is going to be really interesting coming off the FTX and Sam Friedman,
Sure.
is the last surname, Bankman. I should know that, it's a banking term. That whole investigation into what's been alleged there, what he got up to, you're going to see more of that, of course, coming through. And perhaps more regulation as far as crypto is concerned. This might be a trigger point for that. I don't know. We'll see where that space goes. You're going to hear more exposures about what happened with COVID-19 mandated vaccines. You're going to hear more of that. And of course, vaccine injury, which is really, really tragic when you think about that.
That is,
Derek.
Yeah, it is the hot topic at the moment. Let's face it, right? It's everybody's coming out with all these injuries and
that has a ripple effect on litigation. It has add-on insurance claims, etc. Were they covered by insurance claims? Who's liable? This is going to affect big money and going on from there.
For sure.
There's the biggest problem on that one that I can think of. So the government's mandated it, but it was the employer that forced it. So now does that come down under workers' compo?
That was the big elephant in the room when it was all going on. I was going, where these companies have no idea why mandating their own internal policy. It's one thing a government does it. It's another if the private sector decides.
Well, I thought the government was very clever in the fact that they pushed liability on someone else. As simple as that. And it was it was strategic and it was very well planned. And unfortunately, so many businesses in Australia just fell for it.
So it's something very interesting one. And taking it one step further, unions are supposed to protect the rights of the workers. I do not know a single union that actually stood up and said, well, no, this is not in the right interest of our workers when I fight this.
I did hear one good story over the Christmas break where one employer was trying to keep a worker and say, look, let's just load you up on your holiday that's owing, your long service leave that's owing, and let's just get you through and see where we are and make the time stretch the landing strip in terms of lifting the policy. And now they've returned to that workplace. They really tried to shield this individual, and I love it when those stories come out amongst all of this.
Unfortunately, I know one exactly like that. Long service, all kind of just dragged it on. Great. Ultimately came down to the point where the person was fired because there was just nowhere to go, financially on that front. And then just a couple of months later, they're like, oh, come back. Come back. No, get stuffed, quite frankly, because they treated this person like absolute filth.
I have a client in the same situation. They did that to him and then they want him back. And he's like, I said to him, it's a bit like dating the ex, isn't it?
It really is. It really is. It is.
I know one guy, he was working for this company, did the same thing, stretched everything out. And then the boss, out of his own pocket, even though he couldn't come to work because of the regulation, he still paid him like a bit of a retainer, kept him off totally up. There was just cash. Hey, here's an envelope. Go pay some bills, sort of thing.
Nice. Good.
So he did have to lay him off in the end, but kept paying it even though he wasn't on the books.
Wow.
And then when he came back to work, just when the mandates lifted, brought him straight back. So there are people like that. And especially in this employment market we have out at the moment, it's just so hard finding workers. Like, God.
That's an asset to the company because the cost to retrain someone is huge.
So the way I see that was a very, very smart move by that boss because I know the guy personally. He's a great worker. And he's just maintained an extremely hard worker. And to retrain someone else to do his job and that level of experience that he would have lost. Like, you'd be stupid to let someone
You
like
would
that
be. Well,
Yeah.
a side note on that is Edge Radio Australia right now is looking for sales staff for advertising. Simple as that. And we've got this problem at the moment that there are people are just not wanting to work.
Yeah.
They've had that attitude. They've been given their $750 a week, and that which has made so many people disappear from the workplace.
Especially if you're struggling with your mortgage and you need a side hustle, keep your main job. Just help us out on sales on the side.
Yeah, why not? Exactly right. Yeah, fantastic. There's always a way. But it is a shame. It's really changed the way that people look at their work and working from home and all kind of thing. I mean, I was a guy who never wanted to work from home. Quite frankly, it always annoyed me.
So I'm the opposite. I hate traffic with an absolute passion. I cannot stand Perth drivers. So I do everything I can to either work nights or work from home.
Yeah, no, I hate traffic too. But the point is,
Hey, you're a rally driver. You sort of like go through the bushes.
I do. Yeah.
Yeah, go through trees.
Oh, roads where we're going. We don't need roads.
Make your Mini Cooper a 4-wheel drive.
That's it is now. There's a really easy way to make a 2-wheel drive, 4-wheel drive. Is you just don't back off. Okay, you carry enough speed, you'll go anywhere. But look, it has changed our habits, is what I'm getting at on that one. And from my point of view, I'm doing more work from home now and set up there, and it's a very positive thing. I've got to admit, it has actually made my life a bit easier.
And you can work in your jocks.
I do that anyway.
Other things that are going to come out. Okay, this is really interesting. What's been happening just before going to air today is everything that's going on in Brazil.
Oh, please.
Right. So we've had over the Christmas period for months these people by showing up in the millions contesting the election result in that country.
I heard at one of these rallies they had over 16 million people at a rally.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, these are the numbers they're attracting, and none of the mainstream media are reporting on it.
Yeah.
It's because most of South America is socialistic. They are fighting for their rights for democracy, and the machines that they were using on that election, they're claiming it was wrong. And the Supreme Court in that country put in someone who has a criminal record as their president.
Yeah.
And this is being contested by them. Now, they stormed the Capitol today, which is ironic because of what happened on January 6th 2 years ago. We had the whole storm of the Capitol.
The dude
there.
with the horns and taking the podium and all that weird stuff. But apparently that's all Republican.
Now, that's going to be interesting what comes out from the truth of what really happened on that.
Yeah.
Was it a setup? Was the FBI behind it? These are the questions that are being going around these sort of circles. What's going to happen in China and Taiwan? That's another one that's going to be coming up.
Oh, Xi Jinping's speech when he got his third term, that was very interesting.
Really?
He said, what was it? Either peacefully or by force, Taiwan will become we will enforce the one China policy, which means Taiwan will become part of things.
Yep. What's interesting about the timing of this is the economic internal issues that China's been having.
Yeah.
And of course, the COVID lockdown did not help it because a lot of now international exporting has moved away from China to other nations, which is fascinating to see. Bad timing for China in relation to that. Of course, there's that old big debt called Evergrande, which their big housing, the second biggest company in China in relation to housing development, is in huge financial crisis.
Yeah, but it's not just them either. There's like 6 major building companies in China that are all facing major, like they're going under.
It's a mess. It's an absolute mess.
Ukraine and Russia, really, really interesting. The Russian media is reporting that, hey, they want to go into peace talks. The West are wanting to keep fighting. Really interesting that.
Yeah.
Right, that's coming. I actually came across some Russian media saying, hey, we want to talk peace.
Hang on, there's no money in peace. What are you talking about?
Well, yeah, that's interesting. And there's also, I was reading an article this morning about there's a particular city in the Ukraine that is very big in salt mining.
Okay.
With salt mining, there's huge tunnels involved, and they're suspecting what are in these tunnels that they're protecting and fighting so vigorously. Well, you don't just fight for salt. For salt. There's something that's going on. They suspect that there are military strongholds in there in terms of equipment that they've stockpiled in there. But is there something else? Why is there so much conflict over that? And again, as I said, we're in the age of truth. We're going to see what's all this stuff coming out as to what the real story is.
It's going to be a big year for truth, isn't it?
As far as the markets are concerned, I believe they're going to crash. When is the big question? I don't know. I'm just going to be upfront. Will it happen in 2023? I don't know, but that's my personal view.
Yep.
It's going to be really fasten your seatbelt stuff and hang on.
Let's do some predictions just quickly. Aaron, financially?
Yes, financially.
Crash, boom, steady, and how big?
Crash, November, 75% complete disaster.
Oh, wow. Okay. So 75% of the entire market ripped.
No. I'm just talking that up. I've been 75% of what happened in the GFC. I'm going to say that.
Okay.
That's
Derek?
my prediction.
I've got to be really careful what I say because of the position I'm in here, guys.
You have the right to remain
This is
silent.
not a fair question.
Okay.
I think it's going to be a big one. I think it's going to be one where governments are really going to relook. We're going to really see the question going. We've been talking about the whole CBDC, centralized digital tokens coming through and this sort of stuff. I think there is some talk about other new economic models that are out there. I would not be surprised if there is a big push to digitalization of transactions after a big crash.
My prediction is around the Australian financial year, like where that starts. So June, July. I think this is going to dwarf the 2008 global financial crisis. I think it's going to be so severe that global currencies are going to disappear. And like what Derek was saying, is going to digital. I think that this year we'll have a new reserve currency.
I'm going to say this. I think we're going to come out of this in a really positive way.
I hope so.
Okay.
That says a lot of doom and gloom standing there. Hello.
June, I think that's when China's going to invade Taiwan. And I think that's what's going to trigger it.
Okay.
I think we're going to come out with new freedoms like we've never known before. I really sense that there's going to be a new time where we come out of this and you're going to realize how enslaved you have been your whole life. Right? And that what you think is normal is not actually normal. And I think, again, it comes back to this tie of the age of truth.
Sure.
We're going to see that, and we're going to see these freedoms that start to be restored to us.
Yep.
I think we're going to have a big shake-up in politics. I think we're going to have a big shake-up in the medical area. I think we're going to have a big shake-up in the financial sector as well.
I think this is the greatest opportunity in at least 100 years. That's what
my personal belief is I think China is going to go first. Their economy is just going to go to absolute shit. They're going to pull 1930s Germany and go, right, we need jobs, we need money, so we don't go invade Poland, Taiwan. And that's on trigger off. America's on come into it, and everyone else is on pile into it. So it'll either go into a third world war, and that's on absolutely destroy the economies, and that's what's going to cause the change of the.
I don't think we'll go to World War III. I think
I think it will be a very quick, actual physical conflict.
Sure.
I think a lot of the work's already happened.
Yep.
I think there's great removals going on
Yep.
in terms of politics. I think. I think America's going to see the first cleanup in Canada, then Australia. I think it'll happen in that order, and then the rest of the world.
I don't see a big military combat sort of issue.
It'll be like with America and Russia, where they were fighting over Cuba, where everyone put all their ships into one thing, and then they all backed off.
Yep.
I think there will be a few strikes. I think there will be a few airstrikes. I think a lot of the countries in China are actually going to get bombed, and then China's going to go, well, actually, shit, we can't actually fight America.
Nope.
But America's at that point would have spent too much money. It's the cat's out of the bag. You can't put it back in, and then there's going to be a change in the currencies.
And with that, we're going to close out the show. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being part of it and bringing so much great information. Really, really good. And I'm going to stop the show with something positive here. Things can only get better. It's Edge Radio Australia.